Hi everyone, I'm Sophie Milburn, editor of the MSP Channel Insights portfolio, and I'm joined today by Andy from Alteryx. Could you introduce yourself, your role, and tell us a little bit about the company itself?
Sure. Thanks for having me. My name's Andy MacMillan. I am the CEO at Alteryx. Alteryx is a company that essentially helps business analysts put their data to work. We get called things like data wrangling, data workflows, but think of it as, you got a job to do with some data. Alteryx helps you pull the right things together and get the job done.
Perfect. Great little intro. So, your recent research highlights challenges in scaling AI pilots, including kind of trust, data quality, and workflow ownership. So, with fewer than kind of 1 in 4 pilots successfully moving into production. So, what would you say are kind of the most common obstacles that you're seeing, and how is Alteryx helping organizations turn that experimentation into real business impact?
I think a big one, just bluntly, is trust. If we're going to use these agents and these AI capabilities, we have to trust the answers. And
Yeah.
people are discovering they're, probabilistic by nature. So you get different answers. You can ask, a GPT or an AI the same question multiple times, and you get different answers each time. And so we're really spending time trying to help companies figure out how do you establish that baseline of trust, especially in a corporate environment where if I'm asking, if I'm Googling something online, there might be lots of things that are kind of sort of the right answer, and I can look around. If I'm in a business setting and I want to know, what's the revenue or what's my sales commission or what's this customer need, there's often a specific right answer. And so we're spending time helping folks think about how do you create the capabilities and the infrastructure that this new AI universe will depend on that gives you the right answer, tells you where it got the right answer, creates a bit of sort of think of visibility, repeatability, sort of auditability in what we're doing with AI. But at the same time, preserves, there's all these new things it does that we've never been able to do before. So sometimes I do want it to do creative things. Sometimes I do want it to write a summary. And so really helping organizations kind of apply the right capabilities to the right moment and make sure that we have that sort of trusted foundation if we're going to do this at scale.
Yeah. And kind of trying to find that balance, I guess, between using it safely and how you've kind of always used it or, got comfortable using it with that innovation of trying to, push the company to achieve the next best thing, I guess.
Yeah, I think we're learning where to use it.
Yeah.
And I think of, using the word probably, because again, they're probabilistic, is a good way
Mhm.
to think about, where's AI really helpful? If I'm doing an analysis on something that's wrong in my business, I might go to my analyst and they might say, yeah, it's probably this. We should go investigate. That's really helpful. So if
Yeah.
AI can help me get to that sooner, that's great. If I were to go to my business and say, is this GDPR compliant? And somebody goes, probably, that's not a good answer. I want to
No.
know, is this GDPR compliant? And so I
Yeah.
think, there are still places where we're going to want to have rules. There
Mhm.
are places we're going to want to have the right specific answer. But there's lots of places where we haven't used software before, where probably is great, right? We're looking for a place to have an event. Where are some great places? Well, we probably want to do it this kind of place or this kind of place. Like that's helpful.
Yeah.
Who's coming to the event? Probably these people. Not the right answer. I want to actually know. So I think that
Yeah.
framing I think can really help us think about how to bring the right tool to the right part of the business.
I'd never thought about it that way with the kind of probably mentality. I'm going to use that from now on.
I
My
tell
next
that we have a
question.
lot of customers in audit, and I joke of like, there's a place in the business where probably is not a great word. It's something like audit.
Yeah.
Like you don't want to probably pass your audit. Like you want to know
Yeah.
that this is going to pass.
Yeah, for sure. So the report also highlights that responsibility for AI workflows is shifting from centralized IT teams to individual lines of business. So how is that kind of change influencing how businesses are adopting AI, and what opportunities does that kind of create for organizations moving forwards?
I think we're seeing it in a couple ways. One is we're seeing budgets shift.
Mhm.
So I think initially when AI was this big, kind of mega trend, CEOs found some budget, they handed it to the IT team, the CIO, the engineering team, and we ended up with a bunch of these pilots, which I think we're good at showing the art of what's possible. But
Mhm.
what's happening now is we don't want the art of what's possible. We want to change the way the business works and find value. And so now the budgets we're seeing sort of shift over to line of business, and we're having folks like CFOs and heads of sales and heads of marketing coming to us and saying, "Hey, I need to use AI to change, my performance metrics, the output of my team, the cost of my team, whatever those might be.
Yeah.
And so when that happens, they're then saying, well, how do I enable my team to be successful with AI? I
Yeah.
think there's a trend around this sort of forward deployed engineer, which is the idea of like, well, you're, I don't know, the marketing team. Now you need to find these forward deployed engineers who are going to show up and somehow code stuff for you close to the
Mhm.
marketing team. I actually think the inverse might be true, which is
Yeah.
you already have forward deployed employees. You have these people in the marketing team that know how to do marketing.
Yeah.
Can we help empower those folks themselves to put AI to work? And a lot of what we focus on at Alteryx is to put AI to work, you need to be able to pull together the right data in the right context. And then you need to be able to connect that into an AI system, an agent, an LLM, in a trusted way, back to the first part of our conversation. And
Yeah.
so we're seeing this real spike in demand of organizations wanting to be able to connect their people and their data and the context around those things in a platform that's visible, understandable, auditable, all those
Yeah.
things that can interact with AI. And so this idea, I think, of empowering these sort of existing folks you have that know your business, that know marketing, that know audit, that know compliance, that know sales,
Yeah.
to bring together the data, bring together the context, and then importantly, solve a real problem they're having, right? It's not a random pilot of, hey, look at this cool thing I got AI to do. It's somebody
Yeah.
in audit saying, hey, I'm able to do agentic audit reconciliation so that when things don't reconcile, I have an agent that goes and figures out why. That makes a big difference to the business. And so I think we're seeing that shift happen right now.
Yeah, and I think people almost feel more comfortable with the shift and change in AI if it is, empowering those people rather than replacing them. I think that's such an important piece.
Yeah, and those are the people that understand the business and the value that AI can bring, right?
Yeah.
Back to that sort of forward deployed engineer. Well, they're showing up, they know anything about marketing, and then they're trying to figure out like, well, how would I run a marketing organization with AI? Now they're having to learn marketing at the same time that they're building tech versus you have these
Mhm.
marketers and they're good at reimagining what they're doing and thinking about their business. And so I think that is a really big potential change that we can see happen over the next year as the budgets and the mandates move closer to the business is, to your point, really empowering folks to say, oh, I don't know a single person that wouldn't love to have two or three more people on their team to help them get stuff done.
Yeah.
So if that becomes a mentality of like, great, two or three more people on the team that are some agents and I can make that happen, I think we'll see AI adoption and success rates really change at that point.
Yeah. Alteryx has also been integrating generative AI into its platform. So how can businesses kind of use these tools to deliver measurable value and while avoiding kind of those common pitfalls that were highlighted in your research, those trust gaps that we spoke about, the data issues, lack of governance, all of those problems.
I think it's about knowing when and where to use the right capabilities. So again, these are new capabilities. We've never had anything like this before. It doesn't mean all the old capabilities entirely get subsumed in all this probabilistic logic.
Yeah.
And so I think of a couple of things. One is I think there's a lot of places where a workflow that was orchestrated with software used to stop, and an
Right.
analyst would go do the work on top, and now an agent can help that analyst do some of that work. I also think about places in a highly structured workflow where we want to do something with generative AI we never used to be able to do. So maybe I've got a workflow and automation that's got 5 or 6 steps. Maybe one of those steps would be great if I could do some generative capabilities, but the others, I want the kind of clarity of the step executing the same way. And so I think it is really about knowing when and where to bring in these new capabilities. I think that's a skill set that we're starting to see people in the business develop as
Yeah.
people, not only at work, but in their own personal lives, use AI. I think we're seeing this learning curve of people realizing what it's good at, what
Yeah.
it's not good at. And I think that's really valuable because then when you sit down and you're building something, you're rethinking a finance process or you're rethinking a supply chain process, is people have this skill set of like, oh, well, I know how to work with data, but I also know how to work with AI, and I can bring those things together. I think that's going to be where we'll see that those project success numbers really take off.
Yeah. And I know we've kind of touched on the human side of it and, having the people, in the office to do those jobs, but there's a lot of other problems as well that people are kind of facing with constraints with budgets and, data infrastructure, all of those things. How does Alteryx supports teams of all sizes in implementing analytics and AI at scale? And what advice would you give to businesses kind of beginning their AI transformation journey?
Our focus for the last 25 years has always been on the kinds of people that know the business,
Mhm.
that know how to work with data, but aren't inherently developers. So think of somebody who is amazing with something like Microsoft Excel, can write macros, can build pivot tables, but doesn't go home in their spare time and write Python for fun, right? They're not building
Right.
software projects.
Mhm.
Those are the folks that we all know in the business. When you want to know the answer to something, you go find this person and they know the business and they know the data and they can figure it out. We're really focused on how do we empower that kind of person with that skill set to help the company into the AI era. And that
Yeah.
is somebody who understands the business at a really deep level. They understand the workflows. They understand how to get things done and solve problems. And
Yeah.
so what we've done for years is provide that person with an environment with a set of no code, low code tools. They can sort of drag and drop a workflow or a data flow together, and kind of put their expertise to work on that canvas. I think that's going to become even more important as we think about how does AI interact with the business. AI needs to understand the business to the level that that business analyst understands what's going on. And the
Right.
thing about the business analyst is the business changes. So it's not like the business analyst puts all their knowledge down into Alteryx and then you don't need that analyst anymore. Like the minute it's all down on paper, something changes. You buy a company, you change a product, you introduce new pricing, like businesses change.
Yeah.
And so the ability for that same analyst to go, oh, we changed something. Let me go in and make that change to the underpinning workflows that our AI depends on so that we know, again, that it's visible and auditable and repeatable and it's in there. I think those are the folks that are really the key to unlocking scaled AI at the largest businesses in the world and really fast, highly deployed AI at the smallest businesses in the world. At any level, people are going to want that predictability. They're going to want that sort of editability of what they're doing. And I
Yeah.
think you're going to want the people that know the business to be the ones that are kind of implementing those workflows.
Yeah, it's the people with that really deep embedded context of all the things that have happened. Like you said, the company's been running for such a long time. So if you come in with fresh new AI, it's you don't understand it. You don't understand where it's come from, what
That's right.
everything's happened. So yeah, we've touched on it a little bit with kind of what you're, thinking of the future and predictions for the future. But what kind of innovations or upcoming developments are you most excited about and you see kind of shaping the future of AI?
I think one I'm really excited about is, there's this whole emerging space around not just kind of LLMs doing creative content, but actually writing code. And one of the things that we've discovered is that you can use, or that we've been utilizing, is maybe a better framing. I mean, we're not exactly discovering it, but we've discovered we can use is that we can connect these code generation platforms to legacy systems,
Right.
understand the logic in these old systems, and then very quickly re-implement this logic in Alteryx workflows so that
Mhm.
again it's visible, it's understandable. Those old applications, the code on it's whatever 15, 20 years old. It has like tape around it. They're like, nobody go near this old application. Well, now you can just bring all that logic into something modern and understandable and visible that is AI enabled. And so I
Yeah.
think that's a fascinating new area where we're going to see this massive shift in sort of app modernization, where all these old modules that people bought from all these old application providers and things, it's going to be very easy to extract that logic, instrument it in something like Alteryx where the business can understand it and see it and run it, and then put AI on top of that. And I think that is going to completely change how fast some of these sort of agentic systems get rolled out.
Yeah. Well, I'm very excited to see what happens. And yeah, thank you for your time today. That's all my questions.
Certainly. Well, thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it.